future Lizzie here. I forgot to do an intro, so hi, this is Lizzie with Dragon Tree Knits and Dragon Tree Emporium, and welcome to our first episode of my review of Hardest Reading Challenge You'll Ever Do. And me, Grog. Hey. So, this is going to be our overview of August reads that I did for the Hardest Reading Challenge 2.0. I'm hoping that for September I can do it as I read the books, um, especially because I read a lot of library books, and so I don't really have a lot of the books that I've read in August with me anymore. Um, so I'm just going to go through and go through all of this first. I read 14 books, 3,273 pages, and I listened to about 33 and a half hours of audiobooks. As you can see, my moods, mysterious, adventurous, and emotional, a little bit dark. As you can see here, I read a lot of fantasy books. Out of the 14 books that I read in August, 11 of them were fantasy. 7 were romance. 6 were some form of queer. 3 were historical. And then we get 2 for young adult, literary, horror, and contemporary. And then 1 classic, 1 magical realism, 1 thriller, and 1 mystery. Of course, some of these overlap. So, like fantasy, romance, and queer could be all one book. And out of the 14 books that I read, look at that, all 14 of them were borrowed. I'm trying, guys. All of my books are backed up. I should be reading my TBR books that I own, but they are all backed up. So we've also got, let's see, 10 authors were white, and 4 were a person of color, 9 were female, 3 were male, and 2 were non-binary. Okay, the first book that I read in August is The Last One by Rachel Housel Hall. And I did read that as part of the series Stairway prompt. It is a duology, or at least it will be a duology. The second book comes out this fall. All right, so this book I did rate as 5 stars. I'm probably a little more generous with my 5 stars than I should be. I'm definitely more generous than a lot of reviewers that I've seen. So, my review. Without giving too much away, this book is a story of finding oneself, learning about our mistakes, and trying to be a better person. All of the characters, Kai, Jordan, and Olivia, are all flawed and very, very imperfect. They have to grow as people, and some of them achieve more growth than others. The world building, however, is beautiful and complex. I want to bury myself in this world. The magic is a little, not even magic, it was something I have never read before. And I absolutely loved it. It kind of gave the same vibes, the same feeling as the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. Amazing. All right, the second book I read is The Fascinators by Andrew Iliopoulos. This has been on my TBR for a few years. Um, I read this one as my subgenre of choice, so I was reading it as a fantasy book, specifically fantasy romance, because it is a cute little young adult queer romance between two boys in high school. I had very, very high hopes for this one, and unfortunately, it did not meet them. I only gave it a 3.5 star. Um, it just kind of stopped. Um, Very big cliffhanger. There has been no word if there is going to be a sequel or anything else. It was published in 2020, so a few years ago, but there hasn't been any word yet. And so, with that cliffhanger, it just really left me wanting more in the worst way. You know how some books you can, there's a cliffhanger and you're like, yes, that feels good. Like, I want more, but I am satisfied with how this ended. This was not that at all. Um, Also, the characters are in high school. They're like seniors in high school. And man, ugh, it's so hard to read books with the teenagers. Now, as a 37-year-old, it's getting harder and harder to read and enjoy those books. We're gonna keep doing it though. We're gonna keep trying. The third book I read was But Not Too Bold by HRCYED. Oh my gosh. I also read this as subgenre of choice, so it's a fantasy, but it's horror as well as romance. So fantasy, horror, romance. It is kind of a retelling of Blackbeard mixed with Beauty and the Beast. I don't want to give anything else away. Um, if you have arachnophobia, do not read this book. That's it. That's all I'm going to say. It is beautiful. I The writing is just gorgeous. The story itself is gorgeous. It's a novella. It's like 180-ish pages, and I need more. I I need like 10 books in this world. Please, please give it to me. Um, Next is Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay. Again, this is one that has been on my TBR for a few years. It originally came out in 2018. And, oh, I read this as part of the queer alphabet prompt. The main two characters are a gay couple who have adopted a daughter. It is also a thriller slash horror book. Um, it wasn't necessarily scary, but it was a thriller. I would equate this to like a B horror movie. It was okay. It wasn't great. Um, I mean, apparently I only gave this 2.75 stars, so I really didn't like it. It just felt, it's one of those horror books where you never really figure out who the monster is or what the monster is. And I hate those. I hate those so much. So this wasn't doing it for me. I listened to this audiobook and it took me 2 full weeks to listen to it, because I just had to stop and put it aside and listen to something else. It was rough. Um, but I got through it. I did not DNF it, and that is very important to me. Um, the next book, however, is The Sirens by Amelia Hart. Such a cool book. 5 stars. Again, I may be overzealous with the 5 stars. Um, it time skips, so we have two different stories going on at the same time. Um, but they are connected, kind of. One of them is from about two sisters taken from, I think I think it's County Cork, Ireland. Um, taken, imprisoned, and sailed on a ship all the way down to Australia. Um, they are sirens. Um, there are also modern day sisters. Modern day, as in this is 2024. Um, so, modern day sisters, um, living in Australia, connected to the sisters from the past, the 1850s, maybe. Very interesting, very well done. Um, I did have one small complaint. Just I just wanted to see a little comeuppance for a character we meet at the very beginning and then we never meet again. He does something wrong to one of the modern day sisters, kind of kickstarts the whole story. I wanted just a little bit of comeuppance for him, just a little bit, and we didn't get any. I still gave it 5 stars though because I do think that it is a very good book. Amelia Hart does a great job writing. And that one was, oddly enough, I believe that one was done not not for the mermaid prompt. No, that would make sense. I did that one again for subgenre of choice. So fantasy historical, because a good portion of the book does take place in the 1800s. I think that's what it is. I'm so bad at these guys. Next is Anima Rising by Christopher Moore. I read this one for spooky creatures, zombies. It is Christopher Moore's take on a sequel of Frankenstein. Yeah, let's go with that. um, I gave it 4.75 stars. I love Christopher Moore. I have read almost every single book that he has put out. And this one was very good, but it just, something was missing. And I still don't know what. Um, it was it was very different. It was very fun. It was interesting. It was intriguing. There was a little bit of a mystery there. It was just really interesting. It follows Frankenstein's bride, um, who goes by the name Judith in this story. And she meets the artist Klimt. Love his work. And she also gets therapy from Freud and Jung. Just a weird, eclectic mix of realistic characters mixed with fictional characters, which is something Christopher Moore does a lot. Um, and I just really think that the entire book is the epitome of I support women's rights. But more importantly, I support women's wrongs. Because I'll tell you what, Judith has a lot of wrongs, and I still love her. My next book is The Professor by Charlotte Bronte, which I thought I would love. I love Charlotte Bronte. This was actually the first book she wrote, but the last book that was published, I think. It was published posthumously. I read it as part of the Around the World prompt because it takes place in like multiple different European countries. And ooh, buddy, this was bad. Um, if any of you speak French, cool. You should give this a read. There are huge sections of the book that is just French dialogue going back and forth. I don't. French is not one that I have a grip on. Um, I got one word out of every 10 ish. Not enough to actually know what was going on. Um, I gave this a 2.75 stars. Honestly, I might take that down a little bit more. It was so hard to read, and I hated the main character. I hated the main character so much, and it just it didn't read like any of her other books read. So very hard. It took me the entire month to read this book. It's only 280 pages, and it took me the entire month of August to read this book because it was so hard and such a slog to get through. Next is The Gentleman and His Vowsmith by Rebecca Ide. Again, 5-star read. Another queer romance. Again, fantasy based. Um, I read this as part of the series Stairway. It is a standalone, at least as of right now. There's nothing out saying that it's going to be any part of a series. It ended at a place where I am happy with it. They could write more, and I would be happy with that too, but it didn't feel like a cliffhanger like The Fascinators did. Oh, that book. Anyways, yeah, The Gentleman and His Vowsmith. Great book. Started off, I thought it was going to go in a different direction than it did. I thought that there was going to be a lavender marriage. I thought there was going to be a beard. Um, there isn't. Sorry for the spoiler. It's fine. We get a happy ending between the two characters that you want to have a happy ending between. So it's good. Twists and turns though. There were some twists and turns in there. Things I did not expect. Uh, and then again, we're back to a book that I didn't really enjoy, The Witch and the Vampire by Francesca Flores. It is. Ooh, I gave it 3 stars. It was an audiobook that I listened to. Again, the characters are young. They're maybe 18, 19 ish, and they are written very, very young. There were parts where I just had to stop. I literally had to like pause the audiobook and just pace because I was so frustrated with the choices that these characters were making. That one was read for the Queer Alphabet for lesbians because it is a lesbian couple fantasy romance, vampire and a witch, obviously. Um, it says in the summary that it is a Rapunzel retelling. I think that's a stretch. So if you're going into this wanting a Rapunzel retelling, maybe don't. Next, we have The Liberty Scarf which has 3 authors: Amy Runyon, Janelle Chisilski, and Rachel McMillan. I read this as part of the Even Bigger Rainbow light blue cover. It is 3 different romances, all taking place during World War One. Um, America, England, a little bit of France, uh, Germany, maybe? I think the last one starts in Germany and then comes over to England. Um, it's very well done. There's each story, each couple has their own part. So part 1, part 2, part 3, and then part 4 is kind of like epilogue, tying everything together, all of that. It was very, very well done. Um, made me want to look into other books by all 3 of these authors. So I did give that 4 stars. Um, really, the reasoning I didn't give it 5 stars is it felt simple. I don't know, I go by vibes. It felt like 4 stars and not 5 stars. So I gave it 4 stars. Most of my like non-fantasy romance novels generally get 4 or 4.5 stars. Um, yeah. Next is Brighter Than Scale, Swifter Than Flame by Neon Yang. I need more books set in this world. I need, like, what's his name? James Patterson level books set in this world. Please. Everything. I want mysteries. I want romances. I want whodunits. I want horror. I want every genre. I want a book of that genre in this world. It's gorgeous and incredible, and Neon Yang did a great job writing. Um, just the prose is gorgeous in it. The description, like it was so good. I listened to this as an audiobook, and I almost started it over as soon as I finished it. Um, that's how good it was. So yes, I did give this 5 stars. Um, I did catch the twist really early on. I actually, like, about an hour in, texted my partner and was like, "Hey, just so that I have proof that I said this, I think blah 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 blah." I'm not going to give the spoiler, but blah 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 spoiler right here. Um, and then like another 2 hours later, towards the end of the book, I was like, "Ha! I was right." Kind of. There was a little thing I didn't catch, which is cool. I don't like it when there's things I don't catch. Um, Dragons, lesbians, androgynous person. Um, Disability. That's actually what I read it for, was a disability challenge. The main character gets injured as a child, and their dominant hand ends up being kind of claw like, and they are unable to move it. Is my assumption is that the way it sounded is that they're paralyzed like this, so they have no movement within their fingers or the muscles of their hands. The rest of their arm is free flowing, and they're fine. But I did read it for a disability challenge. Um, Next is Best Hex Ever by Nadia Alfasi. It is a magical realism romance, 4.75 stars. I actually read this for The Secret Prompt, which was a punny title, but also it's bright orange, so I did the even bigger rainbow for the orange cover. Um, yeah, it's cute. It's a family of witches. Um, no, that's the other one. Hold on. It is like instant love. It literally happens in, I swear, like the course of 2 weeks. So if that's not something you like in your romance novels, skip it. It's fine. Um, the main character, Dina, is a kitchen witch um, who believes she is cursed in her love life. Oh, I think my partner just got home. Nope. She believes she is cursed in her love life. And that's okay because she's independent and she's gonna power through it, and she is bisexual. Um, and she runs her own coffee shop and she's gonna focus on that. And then she meets somebody and is immediately head over heels with him, but no, she can't fall in love because of the curse. And it is a true romance novel. We do get a happily ever after, and it's sweet. It was cozy. It was pretty good. There are some pretty like graphic um, adult scenes um, too, I think. So be aware, 18 plus. Okay, book number 13 that I read in August was The Order of Swans by Jude Devereaux. Um, this was good. I gave it 4.5 stars. It would have been a 5 star, and it will probably be a 5 star if and when more books come out. Because again, the theme of August was cliffhangers. There was a cliffhanger in this, better than The Fascinators, at least. Um, Not as good as The Gentleman and His Vowsmith. So this one definitely was like, oh, that's where you're ending it? That's how this is gonna end. Okay. But this book just came out at the beginning of this year. So whether or not we're going to get a sequel or a trilogy or what have you, no idea. I really hope so. The basis of this is that the main character Kaylee is getting her doctorate in fairy tales, and she gets taken to another planet where fairy tales are real ish. Yeah, fairy tales are real, but they're not fairy tales there, obviously. It's very interesting. I read this as the By the 100s prompt because it was just over 300 pages, and it was just like an easy little slot it in and be done. Um, Again, 4.5 stars. If and when we get more books in the series, easy 5 stars. Easy 5 stars. And then the final book is Hot Hex Boyfriend. Uh, Again, punny title. But this one's by Carly Bloom. It got me 4.75 stars. So again, very good, just a little lacking. Um, this one was read for last 10 years. It was published in 2024. Uh, and it, again, it is modern day magical realism. A family of witches living in Texas believes that they are cursed, and that they can never fall in love, and that they are cursed to not have magic. Well, not that they can never fall in love, but that everyone they love is bound to die because of this curse. Nobody in town believes them, but maybe some newcomers do. My cat needs to stop playing with my closet and turning the light on and off. I don't know if it's making the glare better or worse. There it goes again. I apologize. Um, but yeah, it's a cute little fantasy romance, magical realism. Um, not quite love at first sight, lust at first sight. Yes, love at first sight. Not so much, but they're also enemies to lovers is not quite accurate, but almost. Only because she doesn't really view him as an enemy. So it doesn't go both ways. Therefore, in my head, it is not enemies to lovers. Um, Graphic adult scenes. So again, read at your own risk. Quite a few of them. Handful. That's it. Yeah, that's it. So now we're going to give myself more room, and these are so you have a visual of all of the prompts that I started. I didn't complete any, but I started some. And that finishes our first month of the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do, 2.0. I got a little bit of a late start this year because I was trying to decide if I was going to do the first version and then do the second version. But I got a bad case of FOMO and I had to jump into version 2. I am hoping, my plan is to do one of these videos every month, looking back at the last month. So it is September, I just did August. In October, I'll do September's, but hopefully I will actually have the books with me because the plan is to record these throughout the month. And you guys won't see me looking at my phone as often. Well, thanks again for joining. I'm Lizzie with Dragon Tree Emporium, and this was Reading with Lizzie, not Crafting with Lizzie. See you in the comments.